One, two, three, the laundry.
Welcome everybody to the Lawn Feed. I'm your host tonight, Vince with Brew Lawn Co. With me, I have Andrew the Dad Bod Lawn and Chris It's Mo Time. Thanks so much for joining another episode. And this episode, we're going to dive into a company called Landzie. But before we get into that, we want to make sure that you're well aware of our website that has t-shirts and other apparel that will increase the straightness of your lawn stripes by 60% of the time, every time.
It's pretty straight.
It's pretty straight.
Without string, too.
Without string, yeah. So today we are going to be talking with Andrew, who is the owner of Landzie. Again, Andrew, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thanks for having me, guys. It's a pleasure.
Absolutely. But before we get into the nitty-gritty of all this good stuff, we always do a wins and losses. And the wins and loss segment of this is sponsored by Forefathers, which is a polo company that's elevating the dad apparel for the DIY dad and the home of the OG Turf Dad polo. And if you want one of those polos, you can use the Lawn Feed. That's the code, and you'll get 20% off of your order at shopforfathers.com. So wins and losses. Andrew, how about a W?
Yeah. So I recently took my kids on the road. My wife has been homeschooling them and kind of trying to see the country, learn a lot about the country. So huge win there. Get to spend a lot more time with them. At the same time, that kind of goes into a loss. I don't know if I'm jumping the gun here with the loss, but it's it's a tough balance. So I get to spend a lot more time with them, but at the same time, we're always around, so they're coming up to me and they're like, "Hey, can we do this? Can we do this?" I'm not in the office, so I'm always around, and it's really tough as a dad to be like, "Yo, I can't do this right now," or I'm on the phone with someone, I have a really important call, and it's much easier to separate that in the office. So that's kind of discouraging, and that's frustrating for me, and they're still getting used to it, but trying to explain to them, hey, I'm around a lot more. We get to do a lot more things together. So just kind of win and loss.
It's being a dad. It's awesome.
Yeah. Take the good with the bad. So Andrew, your company has kind of a cool story behind it, starting off with just you and your family essentially out of your house. Why don't you just kind of talk us through a brief history of Landzie, a little bit about yourself and how you guys got to where you are now?
Yeah, sure. So it all started with the peat moss spreader. Actually had purchased a similar product from another company, and it was horrible on so many fronts. And I was a nurse for 10 years and no background in engineering, no background in sales, business, no background in anything remotely close to this whatsoever. And I was so frustrated with this product. I was like, I can do this better. And again, with zero background. So just kind of started shopping around for partners. We're able to find manufacturers and able to get this kind of going. And from there, like you said, we're out of my garage. We were like checking spreaders in the living room, opening them up every box. The whole family was involved, and kind of morphed into now over a dozen products, and it's kind of snowballed from there. It's been really great. It's been a really fun journey. But we went from my garage to now we moved into a warehouse. We outgrew that warehouse already. We're in a second warehouse, up to over 10 employees now. So it's been a really, really fun, interesting journey, and not somewhere I thought I'd be going whatsoever.
Yeah, that's fun. And, you obviously are kind of going on a little bit of a roller coaster, kind of starting everything up. And, it's fun to hear about the stories from, hey, we started this thing out in my garage from just an idea, from a problem that, hey, I had, and then it grows. It just naturally grows from there, which is pretty cool. We've seen it, from just sitting in our seats on our end. And I think you've done a really good job of saturating yourself inside of the DIY space, but we're staring down the barrel of a lot of spring projects, right? So like last week in our episode, we talked about spring seating. So to piggyback off of that, obviously if you've missed that episode, go check that out and go check out, kind of the steps that we would recommend in terms of if you're wanting to tackle a spring seating project. A lot of what you offer makes those types of projects a lot easier, right? Landzie has a number of tools that would help. You have soil test probes, aerators, peat moss spreaders, as you just mentioned, leveling rakes. Give us some insight, on some of the tools. I've got our aerator right here, hand aerator. I feel like your bread and butter is the peat moss spreader. Go into this aerator, right? What do you like better? What kind of tines do you like better, the solid or the hollow tines? And just go into that.
Yeah, so for me, I've always been a hollow tine guy. I like the core aeration. It was the solid tines came out of just necessity. We take customer feedback really seriously, as any company should, really, in my opinion. And we got some people asking, hey, I don't want the plugs over my lawn. I want to do some, I just want solid tines. So I actually have a partner in the UK who was talking with about it. Went over there and he kind of started. Him and I were just kind of going over this, and he's like, "Hey, I think I have a solution to this. Take a look." And started playing around with it. And I don't know if you've used it yet. I know you have the solid tines. They're sharp. They're really sharp. So it's really easy to penetrate the ground. It's actually a lot of fun. I'm personally be careful, please. I'm personally a hollow tine guy. I like the core aeration, but they're both great, and it's only a couple bucks more to get the solid if you're getting the hollow or whatever. So a lot of people do get both.
So Andrew, going into spring here, a lot of guys and gals are looking to do seeding projects, and that kind of goes hand in hand with the lawn leveling. You guys offer a lawn level rake that helps really flatten out areas nicely. Why do you think that these are better than a landscape rake? I mean, we know why that is, but if you can kind of just tell people why these are designed the way they are.
Yeah, so it's completely flat bottom. Obviously, my lawn has a lot of like undulations in it, a lot of like low spots that I've been able to correct over the years. A bag of dirt here, a bag of dirt there, and just being able to get it really flat helps so many reasons. You're going to get better seed germination. The more you obviously flatter lawn, less runoff when you are planting seed. So that's why I personally like the level rake better. But I guess it's for a lot of tools. It comes down to personal preference. We try and design our tools to. A lot of this comes from what I use. Our testing ground, so to speak, is my backyard. So anytime we have to test a new product, is based off of my lawn, my experience. We don't have I'm the lawn care professional. We take a lot of customer feedback, talking to, guys like yourselves. A lot of our, knowledge comes from that, watching a lot of YouTube videos. I didn't really, that's what I did before we started this business, and that's how I got into it. So we really didn't change too much with regard to that as far as product development.
How wide is your leveling rake?
So we have a couple different variations, and we're actually coming out with a few more. So we currently have a 36, a 42, and a 48. And we'll be coming out with everything from 18, 24, 30, and 36, 42, 48. We've had a lot of customer feedback. They want smaller, they want bigger. Everyone wants something different, and we do try and accommodate that. And, we obviously take, customer feedback really seriously. I think that's like the third time I said that.
Yeah,
Sorry.
that's awesome. That's cool. No, that means it's important to you.
No,
One
good.
other thing we didn't mention here, or while we're talking about lawn leveling, is you have drags too.
We do, yeah. So we have started with the 8 foot, and like most of our products, we've changed sizes based off of feedback. So went 8 foot, then went 6 foot, and it's like, all right, the 6 foot's becoming more popular. Let's try 4 foot. The 4 foot was really, really popular, especially because the way they ship, all the the 8 foot ships in two 4 foot sections, the 6 and two 3 foot, and the 4 foot ships in. It's a pretty tiny box, 2 feet by 18 inches and 4 inches deep, and it's heavy. And a lot of people don't have tractors, so they're able to actually pull the 4-foot drag, and because it's heavy, because you can throw cinder blocks on it, depending on how strong you are, it's not super, it's not unfeasible to pull this with your hand and to level out a larger area with that. But the drags have been pretty successful actually.
Yeah, I actually have the 6 foot drag, and I used it on bare dirt and unlevel dirt, and it put a couple cinder blocks on it, and it works really good. Makes it like butter.
I picture Vince doing like a CrossFit workout with this thing with cinder blocks on it. He's just out there with high socks going to town. Like that's
If
what I
only I
picture.
worked
That's
out.
awesome.
I think we just found a
I'll
new
work
video
out.
for a new advertising video for our 6-foot drag now.
Now you've mentioned that you use topsoil. Do you find that that does pretty good with the topsoil, like the leveling rake and the pull behind? Because it's a little bit probably harder to move that than it is sand, I would imagine.
Yeah, so we use both. It depends on because my yard started out so uneven, there were just certain areas that I was actually leveling up 8-10 inches of topsoil. Really not ideal to do that with that much sand. My backyard is relatively flat. It's a smaller section, but it's pretty flat. So we'll use sand for that. And I've used both the drag, but for me, for like the finer materials like sand, I use the leveling rake more. And for the bigger materials, I'll use it. They're both work interchangeably. It just depends on what you want. The long level's designed more for kind of finer materials and for as like a finishing job, whereas the drag's more kind of just, hey, I've a pretty uneven surface here. I really want to come in with 10 yards of topsoil and spread it out.
Now, when you said 10 inches deep, I immediately thought, roll that out. You guys all you have a lawn roller, don't you?
We It's not where I thought you were going with that. We do. So we have two actually. We have a steel lawn roller, and we actually just came out with a plastic lawn roller. Anything steel is pretty easy to deal with to make. When you start getting the plastics and stuff, it requires molds, which become more expensive and a little more precise. And for for any product we're going to do, and the lawn roller is no exception to this, we try and look at if there are similar products already on the market. We try and find those products. We try and read customer reviews for those products, find out what the pain points are. We'll try the products out ourselves. Like I said, most of these products I have, I've, a large shed, got a ton of like lawn tools in it. So a lot of these come from products that I use and I'm just not happy with it. I'm like, all right, this isn't working. How can we change this? How can we make it better? And now that I've learned that it is, it's not easy. It's a lot of hard work, but now that I kind of know how to make products better and to take something and to make improvements upon it, just kind of running with this, which ends up being a lot of fun.
Well, it's an evolution of how your products come together, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the goal is not to stay the same. The goal is to keep making them better and better, and that's really encouraging to hear that you're doing that, especially so young. I say infancy stages. That's not what you are, but it's cool to hear that story and how you take customer feedback so kind of religiously and passionately to actually go make those better for the end game. It's really encouraging to hear.
Thank you.
Yeah. And obviously your bread and butter, I would say, is probably your peat moss spreader. That's what you guys started off with. And I think you guys have kind of evolved from there. Now, skipping over the entire seeding process of the spring, skipping right to the peat moss spreaders, what makes your peat moss spreader different than what's on the market? What did you change from what you saw, different sizes? And what products do you see people actually using that for other than just peat moss?
So the product, most people probably don't even know what the original product looked like. It had a rolling, the gate kind of rolled up inside. There was a clip that secured that gate. The clip fell off in shipping, all the time. The gate hinge became crusted with like peat moss or whatever people would put in it. It was unable to open and close. The paint was falling off. The handle didn't work. It was just issue after issue. So it's actually called Peak Seasons. I think they're still around. It started out like a Christmas tree shop. but that was the original. So we made the changes. We added the latches on the front. We made a couple other variations in the hole sizes. The mesh we smoothed out. A lot of other changes, and we also have we're coming out with side clasps as well. So that was another change that we made. Just again taking customer feedback, and some people didn't like they're rolling over the hinges and running into bumps on that, and took the feedback, so we made a change of that. To answer the second part of the question, I've always used peat moss, and then obviously we need to try out other things. So we've tried, topsoil, peat moss, leaf compost, regular compost, all kinds of materials, a mix of them both, sand. I throw seed in with the topsoil. Sometimes I'll roll it out that way, so the seed is already mixed in with the topsoil, and I can throw it down. I don't have to rake it in afterwards. So it can be used for almost anything.
Very cool. Um, One tool that I have been using a ton so far this spring on like 4 different lawns is uh, your soil probe. I know you have some variations of that you've come out with recently, some smaller ones, but like I have your original, I don't know, what is it, 24 inches, 30, maybe 30 something inches. But that thing's a beast, and it works really, really well.
Awesome, thank you, appreciate it. Yeah, so we started out with it's 20 inches, and then we realized that uh, depending on what you're doing, most people don't sample their soil to 20 inches deep. You probably shouldn't if you're just like doing it for grass. I don't recommend sending in any soil results at the 20-inch mark. You're probably not going to get accurate feedback. So we're like, all right, let's see how it goes. Not a super popular product, unfortunately. A lot of people don't test their soil, and one thing, as the company's grown, I've gotten away from certain things, and I've tried to retain doing a lot of the business parts of the business I love. So I like don't love dealing with the finances of the business. So we have Diego on our team who handles all of that stuff and does a fantastic job. I no longer have to do that, but talking to customers, as we do grow, I unfortunately can't talk to every customer. We have a dedicated customer service, our customer experience coordinator named Emily. She's fantastic, but she doesn't have a background in lawn care. So I still am able to talk to a decent amount of customers day in and day out. And a lot of the times when they say, hey, do you have any recommendations? It's not just about the products, it's about how they can improve their lawn. And I try and offer as many, tips and tidbits as I can. And the one thing I always recommend is, if you're not seeing the results you'd like to be seeing, please sample your soil. It's, hugely important, because otherwise you're just throwing fertilizer down and you don't know what amounts. Is it the proper amount? Is it the right fertilizer? It can really be detrimental to your lawn.
Preach.
Get your soil tested.
Exactly.
So back to the peat moss spreader. You have different sizes of peat moss spreaders as well. What is your recommendation? Do you have like, hey, if you have 2,000 square feet that you need to roll, get the smaller peat moss spreader. If you have 10,000 square foot property and you have the means, get the 6 foot or the 60 inch peat moss spreader. Do you have like a algorithm that you recommend for people?
No, we don't, and simply because it comes down to price. I'm the worst salesman in the world. So when someone calls, I have this discussion with someone. All right, so let me back up. The reason we have different sizes is because we started out with the 24-inch, and then people are like, oh, do you have anything bigger? So we went to do a 48-inch, because naturally 24, you just double, you get 48. But to ship a 48-inch versus a 44 would have cost us an extra $150, because UPS and FedEx had these surcharges once you're above a certain, a threshold. So we went with the 44. And then people would call and say, oh, I don't know whether I get the 24 or the 44. And like you said, I'm a horrible salesman. It'd be really easy to say, oh, get the 44. It's more expensive. I don't like doing that. I just, that's not who I am. So I spend a lot of time on the phone with customers, and it was a lot of back and forth. Like, oh, my yard's this big and I don't want to spend this much money, but this and that. And we couldn't come up with a resolution together. And I ended up leaving it like, yeah, whatever you want. If you're not happy with it, send it back. We'll change it. We'll get you the other one. So then we came out with the 36 as a result, simply just because I was having so many conversations. But to answer your question, no, we don't have recommendations. I personally, and because I have all of them in my shed, because I kind of have to. It's what I do for a living. I always use the 44. It's easy enough to push. My son's 10 years old. He's able to push it when it's full. It's not that overbearing. So I recommend that if you have, if you have the means, if you have the storage space, and you're going to be using it frequently. Because I love throwing, 2 full bags right into that and just being done in I'm done in 10 minutes. The 24 is great, but it's smaller. You do have to fill it up more, and it's, but again, it's also much cheaper. And some people may have an easier time pulling that or pushing that. Not everyone also has a tractor. Depending if I'm doing my front yard, which is a little bit bigger, I will use the John Deere and tow the 44 behind that just because. So it's all preference. We don't have an algorithm. And it's just mainly trying to talk to the customers to gauge, what do they have a budget? First of all, what size lawn do they have? What are they using it for? How often do they use it? A lot of times it comes down to what their storage options are. Some people, they may have the money for a 44. They may have the lawn big enough for a 44 and want the 44. But if they don't store it, if they don't have the room to store it, they can't. And to be honest, about 25 to 50% of the time, it comes down to what their wives are going to let them buy.
The truth.
Case for about just
Very true.
anything.
Well, Andrew,
No
we're going to conclude here on this episode. I think we hit most of your tools. Is there anything that we missed that you would like to speak about?
No, I don't think
Anything
so.
upcoming?
So yeah, we're always working on stuff. We're always working on changes. We have, one of the IT guys we hired last year didn't tell us about this during his interview process or whatever. He's has degrees in IT and did a really great job, and his experience. Then he comes in and he's like a wizard with tools and stuff. And he's like, oh, well, what if we change this? What if you change this? So we have working on some changes for a different type of 24-inch spreader that will help kind of, help with. I don't want to say too much about that. Just know we're coming out with something different for the 24.
There's a good spreader coming
within
soon.
the next year. Yes, sorry. We're working on a patent for a couple things, and that is one of them. We are coming out with the side class for the 24, like I mentioned. That's just a different iteration, small changes. The lawn level we're coming out with, we have what's called a pneumatic lawn level. So we have a patent for a strut we're adding to the lawn level that will prevent it from flipping over. I never had experience with a lawn level flipping over as we design them, as I use them, but feedback from customers, depending on what they're doing it with. A lot of customers, although I don't recommend this, they use it on grass that is higher than you should ideally be leveling a lawn with. I try and kind of scout my lawn, throw down the dirt, the sand, whatever I'm doing, and utilize it that way. We do have some customers who use it on 4 inches of grass, and I'm not going to tell someone how to use or not use a lawn level. So we just try and make adaptations based on that. So we do have it's called our pneumatic lawn level. Should be coming out in the next couple of months that will help prevent that, and we're really excited about that.
Awesome. Good stuff. Well, thank you again for hopping on with us, going over your products. We've used them in our lawns, and we really like them and enjoy them. So it is a quality product. Where can people find you? You guys are on Instagram and then your website?
Yeah, Instagram. We're on Amazon. Our website's great. Like I said, we have a great customer service team. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. But yeah, www.landzie.com. And then you can find us on Instagram as well.
And you have a 10% off right now. Is that correct?
Yeah, so Landzie has been kind enough to supply our listeners with a 10% off coupon, lawnfeed10 at landzie.com, good through April 30th of this year, which is 2023. So head over to landzie.com, use lawnfeed10, get 10% off your purchase, and happy lawn renovations.
There you go. So everybody, thank you again for tuning in to another episode of Lawn Feed. Andrew, Chris, myself, and Andrew, we say thank you and have a good night or day or evening, wherever you are. We'll see you.
Bye-bye.